David here with another Chinese fantasy novel FAQ. This is yet another COVID-19 lockdown video. I don't know about you guys, I am slowly going crazy being stuck at home with my son. He may burst in. If he does, then I guess we'll have a funny cutscene. Hopefully he'll remain occupied though. This is also another video brought to you by patrons on Patreon who voted on this topic. If you'd like to support the channel, please go to Patreon, links in the description below, as well as other ways to support the channel. Okay, so let's talk about sworn brotherhood. This is an element of Chinese culture and fiction that goes back many years. I read an article in English about it a while back that I felt was pretty illuminating. I'll try to track that down and put it in the link description or the pinned comment as well. But basically, the best example that you're going to find, and probably one of the oldest popularized quasi-historical accounts, is the Peach Garden Oath from Three Kingdoms. Now, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a historical novel about certain people and events that took place in Chinese history. So a lot of the stuff from Romance of the Three Kingdoms is real, but a lot of it is not. And so I'm not going to get into too much detail about that Peach Garden Oath, but basically in the novel, the three main characters, the three primary protagonists, they're in a peach garden or grove together, and they swear to be brothers, and then from that point on, it kind of drives the entire novel. And throughout the novel, they're always devoted to each other and fight for each other, and you know, there's ups and downs, and there's parts where their relationships might be stressed, or they might temporarily be against each other, but for all intents and purposes, they are like brothers. And so this is a trope that is not only from fiction, but also from historical reality. So the concept of becoming a sworn sibling with someone would involve having some kind of ceremony. Usually it'll involve maybe the letting of blood, burning of incense, and the swearing of some oath, thus the term sworn brotherhood. Of course, the terms in Chinese are not exactly translated over as sworn brotherhood, and to be perfectly honest, it doesn't have to be male oriented. It could be between females, or it could be between males and females. An example is the novel that I'm currently translating, or the series I'm currently translating, Sage Monarch. In the early chapters, the main character does enter this relationship with some female characters. So sometimes brotherhood isn't the best way to handle it. In those cases, I'll sometimes call them sworn siblings as opposed to sworn brothers. So in ancient times, this is something that might be common to do in order to perhaps gain political advantage or some form of security. Obviously, having a close relationship with important or powerful people, or maybe even they're not important or powerful, but at least worth having as an ally, that can be helpful in times of chaos or war or whatever. And so this is something that people would do in real life in history, and even nowadays in China, it will still be done. Nowadays, it's not so much taken seriously, I think. I believe that younger kids, high school, college, might do this sort of thing with their roommates, and they'll be like, we're sworn brothers, but it's kind of more a little bit joking. That said, they're still kind of expressing that intent to be close friends for life. One of the things that is common in the novels is for people who don't really know each other very well to enter into these relationships. So I mentioned that series Sage Monarch, that happened in that series. In the early parts, the main character gained a whole bunch of these sworn siblings, like one after the other, and some of them he had literally just met and kind of maybe fought with, and in other situations he literally didn't know anything about them and just kind of like went in and entered that relationship. And a lot of the readers made comments about this, like, oh, it's unrealistic, or why would he do that? He doesn't even know them. Well, historically speaking, again, the relationship of the sworn brother or sworn sibling wasn't necessarily about personal intimacy. It could just be a practical matter. Now, in that novel, Sage Monarch, that's pretty much exactly what was happening. He was intentionally making strong and powerful allies and forming a deep relationship with them to call upon them in times of need, which is exactly what he did. That said, it's not just in that novel that this kind of thing will happen. It is really common in Wuxia in general for example, two righteous wandering swordsmen to run into each other. Maybe they fight a battle together. Maybe one of them comes to the aid of another. They literally hardly know each other at all, and then they'll say, hey, let's become sworn brothers. In fact, in one of my favorite translations, I mentioned it in my recommendations video, Heroes Shed No Tears, a novel that I translated, this exact same thing happens where two of the main characters, they hardly know each other at all, but they meet and then they drink alcohol together and then they become sworn brothers. So that trope of becoming a sworn sibling with somebody that you just met is really common. Now, okay, granted, it's probably not 100% realistic, but I think it falls in line with the idealistic Wuxia and the Jianghu. In other words, that martial world of heroes and righteous people. I think the idea is that when you encounter someone that you perceive to hold the same values as you, which in that ancient Chinese world were relatively codified, when you ran into someone and you saw them espousing those traditional and upright and righteous values, you would be able to make an instant decision to recognize them as a person who had the same values as you, or that you could trust probably with your life, and that you would be willing to risk your life to help. And of course, I know that's not necessarily 100% realistic, but I think that's exactly how it works in the fantasy novels. Yes, it's idealistic, yes, it's unrealistic, but that's how it's supposed to be. When the righteous swordsman encounters another righteous swordsman, they both can tell that they are the type of people who will fight for what is right, and they know that going forward they can rely on the other person to maybe even sacrifice themselves. And that's kind of how those ideal martial arts relationships work. So this is a relatively short video. I don't think it's a very complex topic. If you have specific questions about this Sworn Brotherhood thing, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you have any interesting stories or anecdotes, I'd love to hear them. Have you seen the Sworn Brotherhood thing work differently in novels that you've read? Or have you seen other examples like the one that I mentioned? Please do feel free to leave them in the comments below. I love to hear those comments. And that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Godsilla. Peach garden, peach